There's no one-size-fits-all approach to creating a successful fundraising strategy and plan.
People are nervous, right? It's a big deal. We're raising $10 million, even if we're raising $1 or $3 million, depending on the size of the org.
Major gift fundraising is not deadline driven. It really is probably the only type of fundraising, along with planned giving, that is not deadline driven.
AI comes on the scene that's affordable, accessible, that can provide insights and personalization at scale.
That's the first core element of this fundraising engine or funnel, is making sure that the top of your funnel, the beginning of your fundraising process, you are in front of the right people.
What do the people we serve need? And how do we open the door to help them get there?
What happens a lot of times is we get this discomfort or this fear, and our brain tells our body to stop.
We can acquire donors and we can automate everything. And that's where I worry, at least personally, around the perils of AI, that it would remove humans from the interaction.
This is the Intentional Fundraiser podcast.
A few years ago, I sat in on a gift conversation that should have taken 3 weeks to close. Instead, it took 11 months, not because the donor was hesitant, not because the ask was too big. It stalled because one fundraiser was trying to answer questions that belonged to 5 different departments, all by herself. She didn't need a better pitch. She needed a better team. If you've ever felt like you're the only person in your organization who understands what it takes to close a major gift, this episode is for you. Hello, I'm Tammy Zonker, and this is the Intentional Fundraiser podcast, the show where we talk honestly about what it really takes to grow relationships with the donors who can transform your mission. Today, we're talking about something I think is one of the most overlooked skills in major gifts right now: building a real internal team around your biggest donors. Not a committee, not another meeting for the sake of a meeting. A working coalition of the people who already touch your donor's journey, whether you've invited them in or not. By the end of this episode, you'll know why this matters more in 2026 than it ever has. Who belongs at your table and how to run a session that gets results instead of eating up your calendar. Let's get into it. Here's the thing I want you to sit with for a second. Major gift work used to be a fairly contained job. You built the relationship, you made the ask, you said thank you. The information you needed lived mostly in your own head and your own notes. That's not the job anymore. Donors today expect real impact data before they write a large check. They want to know that their gift is measured, not just appreciated. That data usually lives with your program team or sometimes with a separate evaluation or data department. Donors also expect financial clarity. If you're asking someone for a multi-year commitment, they may want to understand how that gift fits into your budget, how it will be recognized or not, and what happens if their circumstances change. That's a finance conversation, not a development conversation. And most gift officers aren't trained accountants. I'm not. Then there's equity. Boards and donors alike are asking sharper questions about who benefits from a gift and how communities are represented in your storytelling. That's not a box to check. It shapes how you talk about your work, and it usually requires input from your program staff and your communications team. And underneath all of that, there are compliance and data privacy considerations that touch almost every donor conversation you have. Where is donor data stored? Who has access to it? What can and can't be shared across departments? That's squarely an IT or information technology and data governance question. And it's one a lot of us aren't equipped to answer without help. So when you put all of that together, you have a fundraiser being asked to speak fluently about impact measurement, financial modeling, equity, and data privacy, on top of building a relationship with a human being who's considering a transformational gift. That's not one job. That's 5 jobs, wearing one name tag. I think of it like this. Think of a stained glass window. From a distance, it looks like a single whole image, but it's made of dozens of individual pieces of glass, each a different color, each cut for a specific purpose, all held together by a frame. Your major gift program is that window. You're not supposed to be every piece of glass. You're the frame that holds it all together and lets the light through. The fundraisers I see thriving in this environment aren't the ones who know the most. They're the ones who've built the best internal relationships. They've made it normal, expected, and even enjoyable for colleagues outside of development to be part of major gift work. Let me give you a quick example. I worked with a mid-sized organization where the development director kept getting stuck at the same point in nearly every major gift conversation. Donors would ask how their gift compared to the actual cost of delivering a program, and the development director didn't have a confident answer. He was estimating, and donors could tell. Once the development director sat down with his finance director for 30 minutes and got a simple, honest breakdown of true program costs, everything changed. He wasn't just more accurate. He sounded more credible because he was more credible. That one conversation with one colleague changed how he showed up in every major gift meeting for the rest of the year. Here's a question I want you to sit with as you drive or walk or work out while you listen to this. Think about the last major gift conversation that felt harder than it needed to be. What information were you missing? And more importantly, who in your organization already had that information sitting in their head or their files, waiting for someone to ask? That question alone often points you straight to your first coalition partner. I also want to name something that's shaping this conversation across our whole sector right now. Nonprofits are under more pressure than ever to demonstrate outcomes, not just activity. Funders and major donors alike are asking sharper questions about long-term impact, not just annual output. That trend isn't going away. It means the fundraisers who build strong internal pipelines of impact data are going to outperform the ones who are still working from memory and anecdote. Let's get practical. Who belongs in this coalition? First, your program staff. They carry the stories, the outcomes, and the on-the-ground knowledge that makes a donor's gift feel real. When a donor asks, "What will change because of my gift?" your program team has the most honest and specific answer. Bring them in for storytelling and insight. Second, finance. I know. For a lot of gift officers, finance can feel like the department that says no, but I've found that once finance understands they're part of closing gifts, not just processing them, the relationship changes completely. Finance brings you budget context, gift modeling, and the ability to answer questions about how a large or multi-year gift is structured. Bring them in for modeling and financial clarity. Third, communications. This is your storytelling partner. They help translate program impact into language a donor can connect with emotionally, and they keep your organization's message consistent across every channel a donor might see. If finance, programs, and fundraising are all describing your work differently, donors notice, even if they never say so out loud. Fourth, your IT or information technology and data team. This one gets overlooked constantly, and I think that's a mistake. Your data team can tell you what your donor database really knows about a donor, what dashboards already exist, and what's possible to build. They're also your first line of defense on privacy and compliance questions, which protects both your donor and your organization. Fifth, executive leadership. Your CEO or chief executive officer or executive director doesn't need to be at every meeting, but they need to know who your top donors are and what role they might play in stewardship, whether that's a phone call, a site visit, or simply a thoughtful note at the right moment. Here's a simple way to think about roles across the donor journey. Insight comes from finance and your data team. Storytelling comes from programs and communications. Modeling comes from finance. Stewardship follow-through comes from you in partnership with leadership. You don't need all 5 groups in every conversation. You need to know who to pull in and when. Think of it less like a permanent committee and more like a bench of specialists you call in for the plays that need them. I want to go back to that 11-month gift I mentioned at the start of the episode. Once we finally got the right people together, a program officer, someone from finance, and the executive director, it took one meeting to unstick things that had been stuck for months. The program officer had a fresh evaluation report the donor cared deeply about. Finance had already modeled what a 3-year pledge would look like against the budget. The executive director was able to make a personal call to acknowledge the donor's patience. None of that was new information. It had existed the entire time. It just wasn't in one room. I also want to address something I hear a lot from gift officers, especially at smaller organizations. You might be thinking, Tammy, I don't have 5 separate departments. I have 3 staff members and myself. That's fair, and it doesn't let you off the hook from this idea. It just means your coalition might be one person who wears the finance hat and one person who wears the program hat, and your job is still to bring them in intentionally rather than trying to guess at their expertise yourself. The size of your team changes the scale, not the principle. One more thing about this internal team. Treat it with the same care you'd treat a donor relationship. Say thank you when a colleague's insight helps close a gift. Loop them in on the outcome. Let your program staff know when their story specifically moved a donor to give. People who feel appreciated show up again and again, and eventually your coalition stops feeling like something you have to build from scratch every time. It becomes part of how your organization simply operates. This is where a lot of good intentions fall apart. People agree that collaboration matters, and then they schedule a 60-minute meeting with 12 agenda items, and nobody walks away with a clear next step. I want to save you from that. The first rule is to keep it short. 30 minutes is plenty for a focused coalition meeting. If you need longer, chances are you're trying to cover too much ground at once. The second rule is to keep it small, 3 to 5 people, not 15. A large room creates performance, not decision-making. The third rule is to focus on a short list of donors, not your entire portfolio. Pick your top 10 to 20 and center the conversation there. Everyone in the room should leave knowing exactly which donors were discussed and why. The fourth rule is to build a simple, repeatable agenda. Here's the one I recommend to clients. Start with a quick review of 3 to 5 priority donors, about 10 minutes. Then a short program update on anything new these donors would want to know, about 5 minutes. Then a finance update on relevant budget or impact numbers, another 5 minutes. And finally, 10 minutes to lock in next steps and name who owns each one. The fifth rule, and I think this is the one people skip most often, is to make sure everyone is looking at the same donor picture. This doesn't require an expensive new system. A shared one-page donor list or a simple dashboard that everyone can see before the meeting saves an enormous amount of time. When people walk in already oriented, you spend your 30 minutes making decision instead of catching each other up. This is a place where artificial intelligence can genuinely help without taking over the relationship work. I've seen gift officers use artificial intelligence tools to turn coalition meeting notes into clean follow-up emails in minutes, or to summarize a program update into 2 or 3 donor-ready sentences before a meeting even starts. That's not replacing your judgment. That's buying back your time so you can spend it on the parts of this work that truly require a human being. Listening, discernment, and genuine connection. Start with one meeting. Don't try to build the entire coalition structure in a single week. Pick your top 10 to 20 donors, invite one person from programs, one from finance, and see what happens. I have watched this simple shift change how gift officers feel about their work, not just how their numbers look. Let's talk for a moment about that shared donor picture. because I think it's the quiet hero of this entire approach. You don't need a fancy new software platform. I've seen this work with something as simple as a shared spreadsheet listing your top 20 donors, their giving history, one line on program interest, and one line on any open questions. The tool matters far less than the habit of everyone looking at the same information before they walk into the room. I also want to give you a sense of what this looks like when it goes wrong, because I think it helps to know the pitfalls. The most common mistake I see is inviting too many people too soon. An organization gets excited about this idea, invites the whole leadership team plus every program director, and the meeting turns into a status update instead of a working session. Nobody leaves with a clear next step, and after 2 meetings like that, people quietly stop showing up. Keep your first few meetings small and useful. You can always expand later, once the habit and the trust are established. Another common mistake is treating this as a one-time event instead of a rhythm. One great coalition meeting feels good, but it won't change your results if it doesn't happen again next month. Put it on the calendar as a recurring commitment, even if it's brief. Consistency is what turns this from a nice idea into a real operating system for your major gifts work. Let's bring this home. Major gift work in 2026 is more complex than it used to be, and trying to hold all of that complexity by yourself is a fast path to burnout. The fundraisers who are growing right now have built a coalition of internal partners across programs, finance, communications, IT, and leadership, each with a clear role in the donor journey. Your challenge this week is simple. Convene one major gifts coalition meeting. Pick your top 10 to 20 donors. Invite 2 or 3 colleagues from outside development. Use the 30-minute agenda we walked through today. See what surfaces when the right people are finally in the room together. You don't have to be the only expert. You just have to be the person who brings the experts together. Keep transforming your fundraising so you can transform the world.
The Intentional Fundraiser podcast is a Fundraising Transformed original. I'm Trent Thompson, executive producer, CMO, and head of community at Fundraising Transformed and the Modern Institute for Charitable Giving. The Intentional Fundraiser podcast has been recognized by FeedSpot as one of the top 80 fundraising podcasts on the web. This recognition means so much to us, and it wouldn't be possible without your incredible support, encouragement, and thoughtful engagement. Every listen, share, and conversation has helped us grow and reach more passionate fundraisers like you. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to review and rate it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, and be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen. For resources mentioned in this episode and to subscribe to our Scaling Major Gifts newsletter, visit fundraisingtransformed.com.